Goosebumps. Goosebumps.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Chapter 1023 was another phenomenal chapter of One Piece, a direct continuation of chapter 1022, picking up where that chapter left off. Many things were confirmed, explored, and revealed in this chapter: Zoro's ancestry, Sanji's possible awakening, more info on King's race, and the reveal of adult Momonosuke, sorta kinda. Of course, this is our One Piece chapter 1023 review, but before we get there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay notified. Thank you. So we get a color spread this time around, and if I remember correctly, it's of the top 50 or top 100 characters in the recent popularity poll. I think it's top 100 because Big Mom, Kaido, Maria, and definitely Kuma were not in the top 50, so I believe it's top 100. It's one giant color spread that's split across 3 chapters. You can even see Sanji's leg and I believe Crocodile Sand coming from the other page, and it seems he's fighting Doflamingo, of course. And my favorite part of this color spread is definitely Katakuri going in to attack Law, who's just there to pose, and Corazon's posing his gun towards Katakuri like, not so fast, that's my son. I really liked it. Anyways, this chapter started off directly after the end of chapter 1022 with King and Queen fighting Zoro and Sanji simultaneously, and I'm loving it. This fight is going exactly how I expected it. Chopper and Dr. Miyagi are worried about the after effects of this healing drug that they gave Zoro, and I think we all expect the drug to wear off at the last possible second for Zoro to muscle through the pain and hit King with one last strike. So these guys have a whole audience, and the samurai are making sure that nobody interferes in this fight. We get some very juicy dialogue with Marco seeming very interested in King and his race as he's reminiscing a conversation with Whitebeard, talking about how there used to be people or a race that lived atop of the Red Line before even the Celestial Dragons, and back then it was called God's Land. Now, where did Whitebeard get this information from? Possibly from his last conversation with Roger after he found the One Piece, or maybe he heard this information when he's with Roxy Zebek, who we knew was into taboo things and most likely Void Century stuff. But we also get a confirmation of King's race as it was revealed by Queen during this chapter, and they are called the Lunarians, basically being inhabitants of the moon. That sounds kind of familiar, and the reason that's because the Skypians are also from the moon, and they descended from there onto Earth, but we don't know when. So it's possible that all of these guys are connected, and I made a video talking about this previously, about how Skypiea is connected to the Void Century, and it seems as though things are starting to click together. And I said in that video that if the Skypians came from the moon, and we know that there are other space pirates or creatures, then who's to say that other people didn't do the same as well? Or possibly the theory of there being multiple moons in One Piece being correct, and the Lunarians, King's race, possibly coming from another moon and making their home on Earth, living on top of the Red Line, or creating it because of how similar it is to their home world, the moon. It seems as though the Skypians aren't the only race from the moon, and it makes sense because the Skypians and King's race do look similar with the wings, but King's is black wings and he can combust into flames. And I find it very interesting that the Lunarians are the exact opposite of the Fishmen, where the Fishmen live at the bottom of the ocean, right underneath the Red Line, while the Lunarians lived atop, and they're bird-like creatures that can combust into flames and manipulate fire, while the fishmen manipulate the water. There are now even more lingering questions, like how long has the Red Line actually been there in the world of One Piece? Did the Lunarians create the Red Line? We do know that there is more history past even the Void Century, because Zunisha had made a sin 1,000 years ago and was forced to walk the earth ever since endlessly. So there definitely is something that happened even beyond the Void Century that needs to be explained. So it seems as though the Celestial Dragons at one point went up the Red Line and defeated the Lunarians, and thus starting the Reign of Terror and asserting their dominance over the world. Possibly Lunarians had control over a certain power or weapon that the Celestial Dragons wanted to have, and this could possibly be the national treasure that Doflamingo talked about during Dressrosa. After being saved by Izo because he was spacing out on the battlefield, Marco starts spewing some kind of nonsense to Izo like, do you believe in gods? And Izo responds, you starting to sound like Whitebeard did when he was drunk. So of course we know Whitebeard knew a lot more that he led on because of what Roger told him and his affiliation with Rocks. But there really might be some sort of gods or god in the One Piece world that not many people know of, and the Lunarians might have even looked up as gods by the people because of course they're from the moon. They have these wings and these weird mythical powers, and their technology is far more advanced than the rest of the world. So of course people would think that they're gods descending from the moon. It seems as though King does not like people talking about his race or questioning about him, because he gets visibly upset whenever someone talks about it, like here in this chapter when Queen revealed. There's so much to speculate based off this reveal, but we'll make a separate video in the near future discussing the Lunarians and their effect on the world of One Piece. The fight continues between Zoro and Sanji, and Queen is basically dissing them, saying that they're gonna have to do a lot more if they intend to defeat them. They're commanders at the end of the day, and their toughness is what they're known throughout the world for. I absolutely love the banter between Zoro and Sanji and how they're saving one another from the attacks of their respective opponents. I thought that was very cute and funny. As this is happening, Sanji explains that his body has been feeling very weird ever since he put on the raid suit a second time, and that probably explains why he hasn't put it on ever since. And Zoro says that it's probably just his eyebrows. And although it's funny, I think it actually leads to something a lot deeper later on, and that is Sanji's lineage factor that Judge experimented on alongside his other siblings. The reason being Sanji's eyebrows are like that are probably due to the lineage factor that Judge did on him and his siblings that look very reminiscent to that of a devil fruit, because they kind of work the same, where they affect your DNA and enhance your body, giving you superpowers. And that's basically what devil fruits do. They alter your DNA and thus giving you a new set of abilities. I believe the lineage factor in Sanji is finally awakening after putting on the raid suit, and thus kind of explains the fire abilities that Sanji's somehow able to do. I genuinely thought Oda would never explain this, and it was just something that happens because there are other characters that could use flame abilities like Luffy's Red Hawk, Marigold, Sanji of course, sometimes Zoro, and so on and so forth. Even Brook could use elemental abilities like ice. When Sanji is using Diable Jambe, Queen comes to the conclusion that this is due to Judge's experimentation on his children, thus giving them enhancements, but Sanji explains that it's actually just his passion burns brighter than fire. This is literally the exact answer that Oda gave us in the SBS years ago, and I actually believe that Queen is indeed correct, that this is due to the experiments that Judge did, and these powers aren't normal, as he says that the only people that can combust into flames are the Lunarians. And Sanji's body has been feeling weird ever since he put on the raid suit, so I believe that the raid suit is actually activating Sanji's inherent genes of the experimentation and the lineage factor, and he's finally unlocking the abilities that his other siblings have, and the Diable Jambe is just an effect from this experiment. Because we know Sanji's mother took the drug in order for them to keep their emotions, because she felt that being emotionless doesn't make you human. So if we're to go based off of that, that would still mean that Sanji should inherently keep the abilities that his other siblings have, but many people speculated and theorized that he would actually unlock or awaken this inherent ability later on in his life, and that he's just a late bloomer, and it seems as though this might indeed be correct. I think in Sanji's eyes, his passion is the explanation for his flames, but in reality, it's due to the lineage factor, and the raid suit is starting to awaken his other ability. And because Diable Jambe is finally getting explained in this arc, I think it's safe to assume that Ashura will also finally be explained to us as well, whether it's by Zoro, a flashback king, or the spectators like Hyogoro. But speaking of Zoro, Sanji isn't the only character whose past is being explored and his lineage is being explained, as Zoro is also getting the exact same treatment as he's continue fighting King, who seems to have a magnetic blade because Zoro's swords got caught on King's swords and were stuck on it until Zoro had to retrieve them, which is pretty awesome if that is the case. And we find out King's fighting style, he's more of a brute. He's not exactly a swordsman that sticks to code or technique. He will punch you, he'll kick you whenever he has the opportunity, which I think is cool that King fights however he pleases with so many tools at his disposal and will win by any means necessary. But back to Zoro, it was all but confirmed that Zoro is indeed a Shimotsuki and a descendant of Ryuma, as Hyogoro and Kawamatsu are looking on Zoro, stating that he looks exactly like Ushimaru Shimotsuki, as well as uses his sword exactly like him as well, and reminds him of even Shimotsuki Ryuma, who was a one-eyed swordsman. This is going exactly how I thought it would. Every character in this fight's history getting more explored, and Zoro is not an exception. I've been saying for months now that this would happen, that Zoro is related to Ushimaru as well as Ryuma because of the similarities, as well as Oda was purposely hiding what Ushimaru looked like for so long, so I expected him to give us a big revelation, and here it's all but confirmed that Zoro is a Shimotsuki. We know that Zoro wants to visit Ryuma at the end of the arc, and now it's gonna have a lot more significance when Zoro learns his true heritage and his family name. We know absolutely nothing about Zoro's past prior to meeting Kuina at the dojo. We don't know his family, where he came from, why he was even doing this. Well, it doesn't really matter because Zoro's front story is a lot more interesting than his backstory. We do know that Shimotsuki Kozaburo, the one who created Enma and Wado Ichimonji, left 50 years ago on a ship from Wano and ended up in the East Blue and created a village, and I believe he's still alive to this day, and he had a couple children, one of them being Zoro's master. And this village that he created is called Shimotsuki Village, another connection to Wano and the Shimotsuki family over there. I think it's safe to assume that Zoro's parents came from Wano as well, possibly even being related to Kozaburo, but I think it's obvious that Zoro is also a descendant of Ryuma, possibly being even blood related to Ushimaru himself. I know this is weird, but I think by the end of Wano, we're going to see Ghost, because they keep mentioning the word Ghost over and over again in every chapter, so I feel as though that's gonna end up happening. Maybe when Zoro meets Ryuma at his grave, his spirit will show up, or Odin somehow, but I definitely expect a ghost in some shape or form to show up in Wano. But the chapter doesn't end there. There's still a lot to talk about. Jack and Inu's fight is continuing, and I've just accepted the fate that Jack will be defeated by Inu months ago, and it seems as though that is definitely going to be the case, with Inu going into his Sulong form, as well as Nekomamushi. So Nekomamushi and Inuarashi are both fighting their respective opponents in their Sulong form, and will most likely defeat them around the same time. Jack is also in his hybrid, and he looks pretty damn cool. I really want like at least a full chapter of Jack just going crazy, because I feel that Jack just gets the short end of the stick ever since he was introduced, just getting shitted on time and time again. So I really hope he finally gets some time to shine before going down. And finally, we reach the end of the chapter, and we get a spectacular spread with Momonosuke in his adult dragon form, and we have a callback to when Luffy and Momo first met, when Momo said, "I'm not a snack, don't eat me. If you try to, I will devour you." And now Momo is big enough where he can literally devour Luffy whole. And judging by Shinobu's reaction, Momonosuke looks exactly like Odin. I'm assuming that he has the same hair as he did as a child, but just with Odin's face, which is pretty cool in my opinion. I thought the scene was spectacular, and it looks very cool. Momo looks ferocious, and I know a lot of people don't really like this. Why is Momo an adult? This is dumb, blah blah blah. I think it's fine because Momo just wants to help. And with Raizo just a page earlier explaining that his age doesn't matter, he'll grow up and become the shogun and person he's supposed to be. Just like the Scabbards and even Luffy, it doesn't matter about your age. Through adversity, you'll mature and grow into the person you're supposed to be. And the same is what he expects with Momonosuke. Even though he's young, he'll learn to be the shogun that he was destined to become. But that's the video overall. I thought this was another fantastic chapter of One Piece. I can't wait to see so many reactions. Kaido's reaction to Momo, Sanji seeing Zoro use Conqueror's Haki, everyone seeing Zoro use Ashura. There's so many cool things to expect, and I cannot wait. And it's very possible that Zoro could indeed keep Shisui because of his connection to the Shimotsuki as well as Ryuma, but of course we'll just have to wait and see. I kind of get the feeling he won't keep it, but we'll get another new blade. Otherwise, let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this chapter. I thought this chapter was absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait to see more. And I hope you guys have a good day and a good night. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.